Welcome back to the homestead. Today we are going to be preserving some of our green beans that we grew in our garden. We have a lot that we produced, and if you don't have a ton of time to maybe pressure can them, which we'll do with our second batch of beans, then another option is a vacuum sealer. Vacuum sealing is a nice way to preserve because it can keep them fresh in your freezer up to 2 to 3 years. So there's different ways you can vacuum seal. We're gonna do the blanching method with the first batch that we have. So I cut the bean, you cut the ends off the beans, and then we cut them in half. If you need to string the beans, you can pull the little string out too. That helps keep them tender. So we have these ones ready, and we're going to put them in boiling water for 3 minutes, and then you take them out and put them in ice water, so to stop the cooking process. The second way I'm going to vacuum seal my beans is I'm going to pre-cook them the way we like. So we like to cook our beans in chicken broth. That's all it is. As easy as cooking them in chicken broth and putting some salt on them. And then when you pull them out of the freezer in the vacuum sealed bags, they're already be cooked. Just got to warm them up. You just cover them up with some chicken broth and cook them until they're finished. Okay, I'm dumping water in our cold bowl in the sink, so we have an ice bath, and you might have to keep adding ice as you go. So I'm going to put a bunch of these beans in the boiling water, and you're going to let them cook for 3 minutes. So let's put our timer on here. Alright, so now we're going to take these and put them in the cold ice bath because you don't... I know, it's hot. You don't want them to keep cooking, so this will cool them down. And you want them to come completely cooled before you start drying them out. Okay, so my beans are cooled down and I strained them, but they're wet, so you don't want to freeze them when they're wet. So you can either pat them dry, lay them out on a towel, or I am going to put them in my salad spinner and get as much of the water off as I can. If you don't have one of these things, they're pretty cool. Here, I'll put them up here so you can see. You just spin it. It just spins as much of the water off as it can. All right. So, and then whatever's left that we're gonna pat dry. But we got quite a bit of water off of them. I'm gonna lay them out on my pans. And here's where I'll pat them dry with a towel. And then as they're laid down and after you pat them dry, you're going to flash freeze them. So you might want to thin them out a little bit so they aren't touching. And this helps them from sticking when they're in the heat sealed bags. Okay, so the final step for these blanched beans are they came out of the freezer, so these are all frozen. They're flash frozen. So I put about 2 cups for each bag serving, because that's about how much we'll eat at a meal. So I put them in 2 cups. I'm gonna pour them in these vacuum seal bags, and this is like the 8 by 11 size bag for my heat sealer. This Nesco heat sealer came with 10 of them, so I like this size. So you're gonna kind of flatten them out a little bit, and I cut a little off because I don't need this much of the bag. So I'm going to cut a little bit off the top, and then in your heat sealer or vacuum sealer, there's a little space there, so that's where the air is going to be sucked out. You're going to put your bag there, make sure it's flat across the seal. You're going to lock it on, and I have it on dry, and all you have to do is hit the auto vac, and then it'll show you the progress as it goes. The last step will be seal. You'll see this light up here in a second. There, so the blue light came on, And the seal's on, so when you open it, you'll see that it's sealed the bag. So it's all sealed across the top here, and the beans are tightly squeezed with no air in the bag. So they're sealed real good. Nice thing about freezing them first too, like flash freezing, then it doesn't squish them either. So they go into the bag nicely. And then you can write on the bag what you have in there with a marker, and then they can go in the freezer for, they can be in there as long as 2 years. So we finished the blanched ones, and next thing we can do the cooked ones the exact same way.